So I'm curious, why did you initially want to work for Tesla?
Sure. Yeah. I spent a few years living in Seattle working at Starbucks, and that was early Tesla days. So I saw a few roadsters rolling around at that time. It was really cool to see those and then to find out that they were electric and then to learn more things about what Tesla was doing and the mission that they were focused on. All of that was really not just cool to me, but important to me as a relatively younger person at that point. I was looking at Tesla as a company that could make electric vehicles cool, could help sustainability long term, and see where that could go. And trying to find an in to where I could work for that super cool company without being an engineer was something that I worked hard on and found my way in, and the rest was history.
Right, and you worked there for over 5 years. What was your job like? What did you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I started in Southern California as an assistant sales manager. So that's where I brought my retail experience from Best Buy and Starbucks and even real estate before to this fresh up and coming vehicle company. So I started in sales in the field and moved from Southern California to the Bay Area, where I eventually left the field and became a sales and delivery program manager focused on training. So my most recent role was to create sales and delivery training content for North America, about 2,500 employees.
And what did you think of Elon Musk when you started working there?
Yeah, I thought about him as this very cool figurehead that was accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. And he was a person who was able to, it's hard to say make it cool because, of course, him being on stage has never screamed cool. But it was cool enough. And the product was so cool that it was able to get people interested in EVs in a way that they hadn't been before. And that made him cool. That made him cool to me. That made him cool to other people my age and the rest of the people that I was working with. They saw him as the work that he was doing was cool and it was leading in a direction that we all believed in.
Yeah, there's no doubt the auto industry would not be where it is regarding EVs if it weren't for him. Detroit and Tokyo would have never embraced EVs. Yeah, he was a disruptor. When did your opinion of him start to change?
Yeah, my opinion changed a couple of different times. First, it changed when I was just a regular frontline employee that had to deal with my CEO tweeting things that weren't real. And I had to be the one that would break it to the customer that, oh, yeah, no, sorry, full self-driving isn't actually out yet. And no, our car can't do that or that or that. So it sullied pretty quickly there. But you could still look at him as well. He's still driving sales and all of that. But then it really started to change with the Twitter acquisition, and then very heavily during the Trump second presidency, where we started to see him supporting a candidate that a lot of us knew didn't believe in the same foundational things that most Tesla employees did. And even just saying, accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, we all knew that that candidate didn't support that mission. And that was really difficult for us. And then I saw that very quickly affecting our customers and our total sales. And as a career salesperson and person who believes in this mission, that was really difficult to see a negative impact on the company because of that.
Right, but there have been other controversies. Really, Tesla has been controversial from the beginning. That's what disruptor came in and it was not playing by the same rules. I mean, there were concerns about worker safety, busting unions, racial relations on the factory floor, investigations, etc. Did any of that register with you or with the customers?
Yeah, it definitely registered with us and with customers as well. For me specifically, I would see anything around safety. There's enough internal information being passed around of these are things that we're working on, and continuous improvement is another thing that Tesla would always preach. And there's internal lines to reach out to for safety improvements and things like that. But as far as the customers go, as we were, we'll say, scaring away customers for these reasons, whether people saw any cases that were happening against Tesla, as some people started to shy away from purchasing a Tesla, those people were far outpaced by brand new EV adopters. So even if we were losing people left and right, the amount of people coming in, it still made sales numbers continue to grow and our business continue to grow and not seem like that big of a deal to be losing some of those customers.
Right. The Model Y comes on. It's affordable. I think at one point it's close to like the world's best-selling car. I see it everywhere. I see it in China. It's all over the place. So the growth is so strong that those undercurrents don't hurt it. You mentioned the Twitter acquisition, which is when some people think that he started to get high on his own supply and kind of, really start to drift. But was there a recent real inflection point where he really became toxic to the brand?
I mean, yeah, so the Twitter acquisition, high on your supply, is a hilarious way of saying it. There's also just this echo chamber, right, of people continuing to agree with you. You only see the mentions that you want to see and things like that. But where he soured most customers was through the political decisions that he started making, we'll call it second half of 2024. That was when it became very difficult for customers who just believe in the mission to think that purchasing a Tesla is a good idea when they're supporting somebody who's taking the money that he's making from these sales and is putting them into something they don't believe in.
Right. You eventually created a website called Tesla Employees Against Elon. That's a pretty strong action to take against the CEO of the company you're working for. What drove you to take that action and take us to that moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to publish this site.
Yeah, what drove me to do it is that Tesla didn't. There were so many opportunities for Tesla to even separate themselves from Elon in the aspect of saying, hey, our CEO is doing this with his own private funds, but Tesla is still focused on this mission. There were so many opportunities for them to say that, and they didn't. When the salute happened, or the alleged awkward gesture, whatever you want to call it, happened, that to me was a huge turning point because I kind of was able to let a little bit of air out. And I thought, oh, great. Like Tesla's going to be able to, they're finally going to do something here because your CEO can't go on stage and do that. And then not only did they not take a negative action, they on their personal Twitter account said, they put him up there as this is still our guy. This is still the person that we support. And then they had a town hall meeting, or an all hands call, as we would call them. And not only was he the only person who presented on that all hands call was live streamed to everybody. And that was Tesla really saying, this is our guy. He's going to continue to be our guy. We don't care what he does. And once that happened, that's when this starts to fester in me a little bit more of they're not going to do anything. And the repercussions to this are going to continue to negatively impact our business and our jobs. Tesla employs a ton of people in California, a ton of people across North America, building and growing a factory in Texas. As sales start to decline, this will have negative impacts on jobs. So that is probably the biggest catalyst of me deciding, okay, I need to do something. And that's where the website came from.
And at that moment when you're publishing it, what did you expect to happen? And how does that compare to what did happen?
Yeah. Um, you know, I didn't really know what I was expecting. I knew that this message needed to get out there. I was really hoping that it would be picked up by media and just be shared more and keep pushing this conversation that we're not all happy with the course that we're taking. And what ended up happening is a few days after I posted, I got fired. But also, aside from that, a few days after I posted, the Wall Street Journal wrote an article that said, the board is looking for a new CEO. And somebody sent me that, and I was like, okay. First of all, I didn't think that I did that. I just, thought that this was a confirmation that things were heading in the right direction. And within 30 minutes of getting that article sent to me, official Tesla account says, nope, that's not true. Elon, of course, says that's not true. And then the many decisions they've made since then continued to prove that that's not true. And so with my mission and having written the letter and trying to get this information out there, I wanted to tell other employees that they're not alone in feeling this way. You get that feeling when you're messaging people on the side after these meetings that you have where they're trying to talk about driving sales but don't call out the elephant in the room. You'll message a few people on the side and you'll make jokes about how crazy it is, but you kind of still feel like you're in a silo. Getting this message out there and having articles written about it, and I had a LinkedIn post that got some traction as well. Enough people have reached out to me, even people that I was shocked to hear from, people that I didn't think agreed with me. A lot of them reached out and said, I don't know what to do, and I don't know if I'm supposed to leave and make a better decision on the outside, or if I should keep fighting from the inside. So people are still really torn, but it's already been proven that Tesla is not going to change here. So those employees, the ones that are still there, I support them in still being there. It's such a tough job market. You don't want to be unemployed right now. So I hope that they're just doing the best they can while they're there. And hopefully the company will maybe eventually make a decision.
Right, and there's been some real, dramatic brand destruction here because of Musk's foray into politics. In 2021, the Harris Axios poll on brands had Tesla ranked as number 8. It's currently number 95. That is a dramatic drop for a company, self-inflicted, really. Um, does that sit with what you're seeing in terms of that, that tremendous brand damage?
Yeah, so with that, I think it's so important to call out that Teslas have only continued to get better since 2021. Build quality has gotten better. Safety has gotten even better. Range, though not a huge number change, but efficiency has been improving year over year. All those things have continued to get better. Service has gotten better. Delivery experiences, like all of these things would lead to you should be scoring higher. And then when you see, okay, now they've dropped down to, 90th something that you mentioned, that is only because of people's perception of Elon's public persona. That is the only thing dragging that score down. And it shows that the company is really, really in trouble.
I'd like you to read the opening of the letter on your website.
Sure, yeah. So it starts with, let's be clear, we are not the problem. Our products are not the problem. Our engineering, service, and delivery teams are not the problem. The problem is demand. The problem is Elon.
So how does it feel to you to read those words that you wrote and change your life?
Yeah, I still stand behind it. I've had a few different people still reach out and say, well, I had a terrible service experience, or, well, the Cybertruck sucks, or things like that. And I'll take that fair piece. But the biggest point there is the problem is demand. The problem is Elon. There is no reduction in EV demand. EV demand continues to grow, including in Q1, EV demand continued to grow. So when you see a reduction in Tesla sales, it's not because people are souring on EVs, it's because they are souring on Elon. And that's a huge problem for a company that's main product is EVs.
Right, but some people, I guess from where I sit, if think caring about climate change, as people are switching to other brands, there's a lot more choices. There's dozens and dozens of EVs out there, right? It used to be Tesla, pretty much owned the market. How much do you think Musk is personally hurting the transition to EVs overall?
Yeah, I think it's making a rippling effect. I agree there are other options that people could go with. Honestly, my mother-in-law was worried about tariffs and she needed to purchase a new vehicle, or she felt she needed to purchase a new vehicle in Q1, and she bought an Ioniq 5. And it's a totally acceptable vehicle. It's got too many buttons for me, but it's an acceptable EV and she's happy with it. And I'm happy for her to have that. Where it's going to be hurting the EV change as a whole is the repercussions that we're dealing with this big beautiful bill is a certain incentives going away, or even just not even incentives. If you take away the cash incentives for it, when you're looking at state requirements for emission standards, if those start to get rolled back and changed, that is what will hurt EV adoption, because people need to be incentivized to try their first EV to see how they can get it to fit into their life. And once they start to realize, oh, this is not only easy to fit into my life, a lot of times it's better and it's a cleaner vehicle with less emissions, that's a no-brainer for a lot of people. So as we potentially lose some of these incentives to continue to drive electric vehicle adoption, we make the barrier of entry higher for people to start adopting this as a new vehicle, and that's going to affect overall climate change.
Right. And climate has never really been front and center for Tesla. Okay, yeah, they had zero emissions tag on the new license plates, but it really sold on cool and sexy, not virtue, right? This wasn't
Yeah.
sort of an eco, do-gooder brand. What's your sense of Tesla's commitment to the climate crisis? Because that's certainly, at odds with where Musk has been politically and certainly the administration.
Yeah, and that's where you can say Tesla this whole time has been committed to clean energy. And yes, I agree they've kind of downplayed that in adoption of let's get people to buy these things because they're cool, not because it's the right thing to do. But even to this day, I believe that the majority of people that are going to work every day at Tesla are still wanting to push clean energy and climate change for all of the beneficial reasons. And that is where you have to look at Tesla's board and Tesla's upper leadership and acknowledge that they have done a disservice to the company by not making a change in leadership or by trying to separate themselves from Elon's personal brand. And he's struggling with that now too. And Tesla never stopped supporting climate, but their figurehead stopped supporting it.
Hmm.
And even if he's trying to pull it back right now, which it does feel like he's trying to do some of that, unfortunately, it's too late for him to still stay the CEO of Tesla and for Tesla to succeed.
Hmm. So let's talk about you personally. You said, quote, I was very happy in my position. I could have continued to work in that role my whole life, end quote. But you were fired for speaking your conscience. Tesla says you were using company resources to build a website that did not align with the company's perspective. So what's been your life since you got fired?
Well, let's go from when I hit publish. I hit publish and I instantly felt this weight that had been lifted, and I felt more happy than I had in a while as far as what the decisions I had been making. And yes, I never wanted to leave my job. I still think about it on a daily basis of what I should be doing to help accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That is built into me now. So now I'm looking for a job that will continue to allow me to do that. I'm volunteering as much as possible, taking extra care of the kids. They're on summer break now. But the whole mission is still to get back into a role that I can help accelerate the transition to sustainable energy in any different way.
So if you could do it all over, would you do it again?
Yes, there's a sense of is it worth it?
Hmm.
As of right now, where I'm sitting unemployed and he is still the CEO of the company, it doesn't seem super worth it. But I think Q2 numbers will further prove the decline in Tesla sales and further validate the letter that I wrote. And I think as we go further on, it will become more and more clear that what I did was the right thing to do. And I will even stand behind it more as and feel better about it as time and time goes by.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story with us on Climate
Of
One. I really
course.
appreciate it.
Thank you.